Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as we hit the start of a key week for Manchester United in relation to who will be our manager next season. We've also got an update on a potential midfield blow as a player chooses Bayern Munich, not necessarily over Manchester United. I personally don't think it was a player that we were actually looking at anyway, but certainly a player that many of you liked. So lots to get into, as well as options. Are we going to be looking at transfers this couple of weeks of the international break? We should be. And also another club that has been in deeper trouble than we have, but has come out of it a lot quicker than we ever will. We'll talk about that. What is effectively the Xavi effect. Barcelona doing great things when looking like they were in the mud big time only a few months ago. But let's start off with the manager situation. Two things I can tell you. Number one, Manchester United know the manager that they want. And number two, by the end of the week, they'll know which manager they're going to get. Two big bits of information there. The reality is, will we know as fans what those things are? Because United can choose not to put that out officially for various reasons. If it's Pochettino, PSG probably don't want it put out there. If it's Ajax, do they want it putting out there about Ten Hag? But Manchester United know the manager that they want. Discussions this week. And by the end of the week, they'll know if they're going to get that manager or whether they've got to move to position 2. But where Manchester United have to be by this time next week is knowing who their manager's going to be. And the simple reason for this is thus. Yesterday, Pochettino played with PSG and they lost 3-0 to Monaco. Yesterday, Ten Hag played with Ajax in a key championship game. They beat Feyenoord 3-2. Today, it's international week. And it's international week all week. Pochettino ain't training the PSG players. Ten Hag isn't training the Ajax players. And if he is, most of them are going to be on international duty and it's a light week. Next Monday, those players start coming back ahead of the run-in for the titles. So this week is the week for Manchester United. Somebody might say, well, they might not get it done this week. Well, that would be typically incompetent Manchester United, and I don't think we can afford to be like that at the moment. So this week, two big things. Manchester United know who they want. Manchester United, by the end of the week, will know who they're going to get. So expect talks, expect leaks. We know Manchester United have so much scrutiny around them, and I suspect there will be a lot of leaks this week, but ultimately stay on target. I mean, I've heard stuff over the weekend that United are going to finalise the deal today. It's funny how they're going to finalise that deal today when they haven't had those discussions with either manager yet. So that would be amazing. Hello, do you want the job on a Zoom call? Yeah, I'd love it. Yeah, great, it's done. That's not what's going to happen. There will be talks this week. Those talks are going to be quite in-depth because the managers are going to need to know things about transfer budgets, what players they can keep, what players they can sell, what the future plan is. Lots of things. No Man United manager, no prospective Man United manager can sit down over an hour having a Costa or a Starbucks, don't want to be exclusive, and say, yes, I'll just take the job. So conversations this week, and then you've got to deal about wages, contracts, and all sorts of stuff like that. Will United make you say, I didn't see that coming, says Slow Sports News. Well, I think at the moment, look, we can all speak like, well, United know who they want at the moment and they'll know who they're getting by the end of the week. I don't want to be vague on this. I watched the video last night and it's absolutely spot on. As things stand at the moment, Ten Hag is the man that Manchester United appear to want. I'm still reserving judgment on that because I don't trust this board, but I do agree with what, was it David Ornstein said yesterday? Because it fits in with a lot of the rumours that have been around United for a while. There is a split. I was talking about this on Friday. There is a split between Ten Hag and Pochettino, but a lot of the Pochettino people, I don't think they've really got the power in that club anymore. And I'm not going to name names, but speaking to people over the weekend who are in the know and journalists, they were saying that, look, there is people who want Pochettino in that club, but really the people with the power are leaning towards Ten Hag. So I'm hoping that the power people will actually flex their muscles on this. Now, look, I don't know the names of these players, but apparently there are players and there always has been players. There was a story back in January from quite a good source, and there was one at the weekend saying that there are players in the dressing room who are pushing for Pochettino. With all due respect, those players are out of the Champions League in the last 16, they're out of the FA Cup to Middlesbrough, and they are in a race for 6th. Do I want to listen to those players on what they think is right for Manchester United? I don't. You shouldn't listen to your players anyway, but I wouldn't listen to those players. If this was the 99 treble winning side and Sir Alex was retiring and Roy Keane said, look, 3 or 4 of us really think we should go for this manager, I may take it on board. But I ain't taking it on board from Maguire and his men coming to the board, and I'm not saying Maguire's the person, but he is the captain, so you'd presume he'd be the man knocking on the board's door, saying, "Me and the lads think we should go for this, Pochettino." I'd say, "Where are you in the FA Cup? Where are you in the Champions League? And where are you in the league? Yeah, don't close the door on your way out. I'll be slamming it." You can't listen to these players; they can't be trusted. So, I think that in general, the people in power at United do want Ten Hag, and they've got to push through with that, because it's very, very clear as well. I don't want to look at one result. Ten Hag will build Man United in his own image, says Ray. I don't want to go off one result, but the way that yesterday Ajax, in a massive game against Feyenoord, they go 1-0 down to 1-1. They go 2-1 down to 2-2, and they win it with 5 minutes to go. They're under pressure. Feyenoord are not a bad side. It was in Amsterdam, but they're under pressure and they find a way to win. PSG, knocked out of the Champions League, get stuffed by Monaco. They're going to win the league, but they've downed tools. They downed tools against Real Madrid psychologically, and they've downed tools for the rest of the season now. That reflects on the manager. And he's got one of the best teams in the world. He's got one of the best squads in the world, and they've downed tools for him. And my concern with Pochettino is there is an evidence of failure. He hasn't won a trophy, and Spurs got to a final of a Champions League and he was sacked 3 or 4 months later because psychologically they were blown. They were like, "Oh, that was our big chance. We can't get up for the new season." He was sacked. Look at PSG, knocked out of the Champions League. They're losing to Monaco 3-0 because psychologically they've gone and he can't lift them. And that, I know people will say, "That's not fair, that's not fair." But it is fair because it's my opinion. What I notice with Pochettino is that he seems to go so far with a team, and then when they fail, he can't lift them again. That is the most dangerous appointment Manchester United could do, because we've been doing that for 3 or 4 years. We've been getting to semi-finals. We've been winning good games in the league and then bottling it the week after. We've got to try something new, and I feel that Ten Hag is that way to go. The manager is important, says Klaus, but if we don't learn to sell players, we will suffer even more. Rangnick or Mitchell as is life depending for the club as director in football, says Klaus. Well, look, one manager will not change Manchester United's fortunes. You're right. It's about the structure. It's about the players. It's about recruitment. It's about control. All those things are correct. But right here, right now, obviously we're talking about new manager for Manchester United this week. If I was a betting person, who do I think it will be? I don't even want to say it because I don't want to jinx it, but I would agree that at the moment it's looking like the Ajax manager does lead the race, and I don't think it's about opinion anymore. That's the dangerous thing. I think last week I would have gone, look, they've got to go for Ten Hag, but they obviously quite like Pochettino. I just think it's becoming more and more apparent that it can't be Pochettino. Like, it just can't be him. It's a huge risk and that nobody wants to take. And let's not forget, what has Pochettino done in the build-up to being offered the United job? He's bottled the Champions League and he's just got stuffed at the weekend by Monaco. He's also been sacked by Spurs. His basic CV is, I'm a good coach, but I do fail. We need a winner. We can't have failure on the CV. We can't have that. And Pochettino does have failure and question marks next to his name. Maybe he's the perfect fit for United, but not if we want to change. Ten Hag has failed as well. Poch did beat Ten Hag, says Kush, but I mean, you are the master of coming out with irrelevant comments, I'm afraid. Poch beat Ten Hag, 4 years ago in a Champions League semi-final where they did it right at the end in the last minute. I mean, he still won, but if you watch the game, it certainly wasn't domination, and you'd expect Spurs to beat Ajax anyway. But look, I'm not going to jinx it. I'm not going to help anyone. My feeling is that they should go for Ten Hag, and I've always said that. If you think it should be Pochettino, that's absolutely fine. But I believe the club know who they want. Well, I know the club know who they want. And by the end of the week, I think they will know who they're getting as well, because they can't allow it to go any longer. So let's wait and see. I'm expecting a lot of leaks. I'm expecting a lot of people tapping people for information. Have you spoken to that? I'm expecting a lot of people trying to figure out who's getting on planes and things like that. Do they need to do it by plane? And you'd hope it was going to do it in person. So you've got to watch out for all these things. But the movement of Pochettino and Ten Hag this week will be very much scrutinised, because I think the worst thing United can do, and I expect them to do it, and I haven't mentioned this before, is I think they'll interview them both. I do think they will interview them both, and I think that's a big mistake. I don't think you should be interviewing both. If you're interviewing both, you are making it an equal race. And if you think it's an equal race, that is a huge mistake. Again, some people would disagree with me on that because, you know, it's a big job and you've got to listen to both. But their CV and who they are, you don't need to interview them. Look at what they are and what they stand for, and you will see them. And I'm going to do a video at 2 o'clock about Ten Hag's style of football, and we'll probably do a Pochettino one this week as well, just so people can get a little bit deeper on that if they don't know about it. But ultimately, I don't need to interview Pochettino. I know who I want. The danger is, if you interview Ten Hag and you interview Pochettino and he comes out with a PowerPoint that he's been working on for ages and he does a good interview, you're going to give him the job off a good interview. You've got to give the person the job because you've done... This is not... I think appointing a manager, and this is what worries me about United as well. If I own a football club and I'm appointing a manager, I'm not running interviews at Burger King. I know who my manager is because I've got to do the work. This is why you have head of recruitments. This is why you have scouts. I don't interview midfielders for the CDM role. I know who I want. Football interviews, we ain't bloody HSBC Bank. Like, we don't need to interview and go off bloody who did well in their interview with their PowerPoints. We should know who we want. The danger is, for me, Ten Hag is the right man. If you interview Pochettino and he does a good interview, oh, sorry, Ten Hag, we know you're the better man for the job, but his interview was great and we liked the colour of his shirt. So, yeah, he didn't get the job. So I don't want to hear about interviewing them both because that feeds into a split, doesn't it? Jameson Gray says, why do you think Xavi has been so successful at Barcelona, coming from Saudi Arabia and Solskjaer, for example, such a failure, says Jameson? Oh, well, I can answer that question very easily because Xavi is one of the greatest technical footballers that we've seen in the last 15 years, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was a goal scorer. I think Xavi's understanding of the game is on a different level to Solskjaer, and that's very clear, isn't it? But why is Jose Mourinho a better manager than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer won a treble and scored a goal in a Champions League final. Jose Mourinho didn't as a player. So you can't look at two individuals and say why is he better than him based on his footballing CV. Ten Hag right now is ticking most of the boxes, says Torres. He's the right man for the job. I don't know whether that's the man the United are going to go for. If I was guessing, I'd say it is, and I think the talks will take place this week. And the great thing about if it is to be Ten Hag, I must just say this before I move on. If it is to be Ten Hag, then the great thing about him is that I think there is a real possibility that this could be announced by early next week, weekend, late this week. I don't think Ajax would have a problem with it because they know he's going to leave in the summer anyway. That might not happen. I don't know how you'd keep it quiet anyway. United are terrible at keeping things quiet, but by the end of the week, they will know who their manager's going to be, and I think they know who they want now, and it's about having those talks and agreeing a deal. And they've got to move on for it very quickly, because actually, as we move on in the show, make sure you smash a like on the video. Let's see if we can get 1,000 likes. No updates on Paul Mitchell at the moment, Vinny. I'm sure there will be some updates on that very soon as well, probably in the next 2 weeks as well. But Mike Verwell, I probably always pronounce his name wrong. He's a really good source around Ajax. He's come out in the last few hours saying that Gravenberch from Ajax has agreed to join Bayern Munich. There was always a strong rumour that he would do that, but he has agreed to join Bayern Munich, according to Mike Verwell, who is the person who's given us a lot of information around Ten Hag's attraction to joining Manchester United. It's funny because we was talking about Ryan Gravenberch last week. Very good midfielder, plays for Ajax and Holland, Netherlands, funnily enough. And a lot of United fans think he would be perfect for our midfield. I mean, personally, I'd be leaning towards Tchouaméni, which I think a lot of people would. But I never thought we could get him anyway. I remember last week when we were linked to him, and I never thought we could get him anyway because his agent is Mino Raiola. And I just can't see how United are going to lose a player in Paul Pogba for nothing, who's worth at least 50 million quid, and then go, I know you've just screwed us over and run the contract down, Mino, but could we have a chat about Ryan Gravenberch? I just don't think United would be interested in it anyway. But what it does show, more importantly, I think, is that by not having a manager in place, we're losing out. We're losing out, and we could lose out more. We are now in the March international break. The March international break is well known for clubs starting to finalise transfers for the summer. They don't normally officially announce them, but a lot of work gets done on this March international break with agents and clubs in preparation for the summer, so that some clubs can hit the ground running in the summer and get a lot of business done. And obviously Bayern Munich always seem to be quite efficient at doing this sort of thing, and they've obviously made their move in relation to Gravenberch already from Ajax. Now, look, if Ten Hag was going to be our manager, that's a player that he's managed for a couple of years that maybe he could have said, look, I can have a word with him and get him to United. I think the Mino Raiola thing would have made it very difficult for us to do, but it just shows to me that these transfer options will become more and more limited the longer we take to organise what it is our vision is as a football club, and that vision has to start with the manager. So they've got to get things moving this week, and I think anticipation and pressure from the media and the fans is really important, because it's not just about taking your time about the new manager. We've got to know this, and I had somebody say yesterday, why are you so sure it's going to happen this week? Because I'm 100% sure, but also because it's very logical. If we don't get it done this week with the manager, the season kicks in again and people are managing until the end of May. So we've got to get it done this week, because we've got to know what players we're going to be talking to next week and for the next few weeks. So we have to do that. Any option that we're looking at, and let's not forget as well, with Arsenal winning at the weekend and Spurs won yesterday, I mean, how has that happened? We beat Spurs with a Ronaldo hat-trick. We think, yeah, look at us. We've literally not played a league game since. Spurs played their games in hand and they're a point ahead of us. We beat Spurs. We deserve to beat Spurs. We were very good against Spurs. And yet, without playing any Premier League games and Spurs playing their games in hand, they're now above us. It's like, how has that happened? Well, it's happened because of, not because we beat Spurs, it's happened because we didn't beat Watford, because we didn't beat Burnley, we didn't beat Southampton. So we're paying the price here of a bad season, and the ultimate price of a bad season will probably be being in the Europa League, or even worse, the Conference League. And then you shrink. Basically, I look at a transfer window like a circle. There's lots of players you can get in that circle, but by not having a manager appointed in March, that circle gets even smaller, and by being in the Europa League, it gets really small. So we've got to be trying to get that circle as big as we can. Got to scrap and try and get it back in the Champions League, which is going to be difficult, but appointing a manager will open that circle up a little bit more. Mark, who would you be a wild card manager in the sense if Poch and Ten Hag aren't available for whatever reason? Who would you go for, says Jameson Gray? I think in those circumstances, I'd probably stick with Ranić until Christmas and try and get Luis Enrique. There's no real standout target. I mean, I'd like Nagelsmann. That's never going to happen. I'd like Tuchel. That's never going to happen. The Sporting Lisbon coach, I can never pronounce his name, is interesting, but I think in the circumstances I'd stick with Ranić. Yeah. Barcelona have beat their rivals 4-0 and AC Milan are about to win the Serie A, and both have been in the mud for the same amount of time as United, and we've been fighting for top four for 10 years, says Lucas Wade. Exactly. I appreciate the optimism on the manager, Mark, but don't forget who runs the club. I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happens, says Lil. And hi Mark, can you please help me understand why Maguire is in the England squad but Tomori isn't? Shouldn't United go for him in the summer, says Animish. But Tomori's only been at AC Milan for a year, hasn't he? He's not even been there a year yet, and I think he'd be a brilliant signing for Manchester United. If Maguire's here, Tomori's here, but that's typical English bias for you. I mean, Harry Maguire and Tyrone Mings, to be fair, being picked ahead of Tomori, that's just Southgate picking bloody mates, isn't it? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But would I take Tomori at Manchester United? Yes, I would. Do I think that we will go and do a deal like that? No, I don't. But he is a really, really good centre-back, and I think he'd be a well-worthy looking at United. But in relation to transfers, we are... It's like everything, isn't it? I think once you know who the manager is, you can start moving for the transfers, and you can start looking who you're going to sell. This 2 weeks... For some clubs, it's like, let's have a rest. For Manchester United and United fans and the media, it's get to work time. We've got to work. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to really have a little bit of a rest, but we've got to go and work, because if we don't work now, we're setting ourselves up for a really bad season next season. So they've got to work on this, and ultimately, I would take it as a positive. There actually are people out there that we can go and get. I think when Sir Alex retired, that left us with David Moyes or nobody. We'd left it way too late with them. And I think there is the example of Manchester United's problem. With Sir Alex Ferguson, nobody really knew he was going to retire until, rumours are, early April. So the international break, even if there was an international break back in them days, is gone. And that's too late. that's too late. Moyes struggled because he wasn't up for the job, but he also struggled to get his transfer business done because he didn't start his job until, was it like July or June or something like that, because he was loyal to Everton. Got to get the manager in now. You've got to use these next 6 weeks, really, before the end of the season starts. Well, it's 2 months, isn't it? It's not 6 weeks. It's April and May. We've got to get it done. And that will feed into the transfers as well. So, yes. I do want to just talk about Barcelona very, very quickly, because, Mark, is this the lowest you've seen United? No trophy in 5 years, 5-0 loss to Liverpool, and potentially winning a treble or at least a double, says Connerty. Kushina says doesn't believe in Ten Hag. Well, nobody's guaranteed, Kush. Nobody's agreed. There's a risk attached to any manager that we go with, but I think Pochettino is just the wrong profile of manager to go for. He's a proven bottler when it gets to delivering, and that's not what United need. You can almost say, well, we've done that with Solskjaer. Solskjaer bottled semi-finals and finals. We need a different profile of manager. We need somebody that doesn't come with that element of failure attached to them, and Pochettino has failure written all over him, doesn't he? I know he's won a French Cup and he's going to win a French league, but to be honest, I'd fancy myself to do that. I think Ten Hag is the right choice, definitely. But look, there is a light that never goes out. There is a light and it never goes out. There is a light that never goes out, and that is optimism. And you look at Barcelona last summer, you look at Messi crying, leaving, which I thought that was a hammer blow for Barcelona. You could see it coming. The ridiculous amounts of money that they spent on people like Ousmane Dembele and Griezmann, and there was somebody at Coutinho, hundreds of millions of pounds wasted on the wrong profile of player, a bit of a lack of identity. Messi leaves and you think, God, Barcelona are going to be in trouble for a very long time. They bring Xavi in, who gets what the club's all about, which always helps, but he's also obviously a very, very good coach, and they rebuild that club in a way where ultimately it's an ethos, it's structure, it's chemistry, it's philosophy, and they are doing fantastically well. I mean, they've just stuffed Real Madrid last night, which is not easy. Real Madrid are not a bad side by any means, and Real Madrid just beat PSG, so they're not a bad side, and they're probably going to coast the Europa League as well. So Barcelona, they've not even had a bad season, really. They've not. They look like they're on their feet. They look like they're on their knees, and they're up throwing punches again. So, I mean, I could imagine Barcelona challenging for a Champions League in the next couple of years if things go their way. I mean, they're even talking about trying to get Pogba in now or something like that. So, I've always said this about Barcelona and Real Madrid. No matter how much you want to banter their league, and look, La Liga is not the Premier League. La Liga was always, for a long period of my life, La Liga was always the best league. It's not the best league now, but it doesn't mean that Real Madrid and Barcelona can't win Champions Leagues. And the reason they will always be successful is because they're not owned by the Glazers. They're not owned by people who want to use the name of Real Madrid and Barcelona to make money. That's not what Real Madrid and Barcelona is about. The structure of those football clubs is that mistakes can be made and presidents can be replaced and hounded out, but their ultimate aim is to be the best football team in the world, and that never changes. That is the ethos of Barcelona and Real Madrid, and the demand from their support, who are intrinsically linked into how their club is run. They always are about winning on the pitch. Nothing else matters. They've got the stadia, they've got the support, they do make a lot of money, but their aim is to win and win on the pitch. And when they're not winning on the pitch, there is outrage. At Manchester United, we got bought by people who don't like football. They bought us on debt to make money. And ultimately, we are still an embarrassment in the world of football for the size of football club we are, because we are basically a cash cow to businessmen. That would never happen at Barcelona and Real Madrid. Their fan base would never allow it to happen. And I'm not saying that our fan base is bad, but it just wouldn't happen. And that is why it's not just Xavi. Xavi would not be able to get Barcelona back where they are as quick as they are if he had the Glazers in charge of Barcelona. Xavi has done a fantastic job there, but he's also got the structure around him to be focused on football, and everybody knows that's the job. From the president all the way down to the canteen, they know their job is to close the gap on Real Madrid, win La Liga, and be competitive in the Champions League and win that. That's their job. At Manchester United, it isn't that. So I don't think we can look at Barcelona and say, well, they've done it in a short period of time, we can do it. We can do that, but the whole ethos of the club's got to change. You've got to stop employing footballers just because they've got high social media followings. You've got to stop having meetings with shareholders and pleasing them. You've got to become a football club. And the money will pour in. I saw a rich list actually today, and Man City, I think, are above Man United now, and Liverpool are closing in. It's almost as if you're successful on the pitch, you make a lot of money. Man United, I've been saying this for 10 years. They've employed the wrong people to run that football club. They've employed bankers to please brands, and actually we've been shit on the pitch. If we'd been successful on the pitch, better brands would be interested and they'd pay more money and we'd make more money. But the Glazers don't really care. People don't get this. You say, well, the Glazers would make more money if we were more successful, but they're already living the dream. They bought us on debt. They're making dividends every year and they're just servicing the debt off the profit. Yes, they could make more money, but they don't bloody care about football anyway. They're making enough money off us. That's the thing. They're not even trying to be greedy. They're just making them. They're already making enough money. I mean, I don't know whether one of the Glazers was at the Formula One yesterday, queuing up for a free kebab, wasn't it, or something like that. I mean, it's the perfect analogy, isn't it? Oh, I'm absolutely loaded, but I'll queue up for a free kebab, and ultimately you're going to pay me to eat that kebab, which is basically what's happened at United. We're paying them to make money out of our football club because ultimately they bought us on debt. That debt's never disappeared, and the revenue which you put into the club goes into their pocket. So ultimately, we're paying the Glazers to run our club because they've always run us on debt. They've never put any of their own money into it. What worries me is that we realistically need to get rid of 10 or 12 players and get at least 7 or 8 good substitutes in. And that's never going to happen, says Jameson Gray. Yeah, well, the journey back is huge. The journey back for Manchester United is absolutely huge. But it would be a lot shorter journey if we were run in the way that Barcelona or Real Madrid are run. And look, I've took the piss out of Barcelona and Real Madrid, but I always said they'll be back. They will always be back because the ethos of their clubs is football. So you're always going to come back. As long as you've got an ownership structure that is focused on the pitch, you will always come back if you're a big club. Because look at Liverpool. 30 years without winning a title, they still came back because their ethos as a football club is to be the best football team in the world. And it took them 30 years to do it, but they will come back because they've got that relentless nature. I just hope that we will come back, but unfortunately we've got the worst owners of all the big clubs in the Premier League, haven't we? Because our owners just don't care about the football pitch. So, yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult. And I just wanted to talk also about, I saw Gary Neville tweeting this morning, another good tweet, so I will highlight it, a bit of positivity. And basically he was saying that when United drew a game at home, they wouldn't even dare go to the local Italian restaurant. United get knocked out of the Champions League and they can't move for people at the boxing or the cricket or, photographs with celebrities. I thought, to be fair, Gary Neville and some of the ex-players do get accused of having favourites that they won't go in on, whether it's a manager or a player. But I thought actually fair play. He's not far wrong there. There are players out there that are on their holidays, extended break again. I mean, Man United should be sponsored by Thomas Cook or whatever your country has as a travel agent, because we've had more breaks, more extended breaks this season than Thomas Cook. They have. We had, when Ollie lost to Liverpool, they gave everyone a week off, didn't they? They had the break when we had the COVID thing. They've got this break. They seem to have had loads and loads of breaks this season. No wonder they're so lazy and shit. They're always on holiday. I've never known a season like it. They've had about, with international breaks as well, excluding international breaks, I think United have had about 3 weeks off as well. They can't argue about being tired. They really can't. But also another tweet I saw, and it's quite interesting actually, because you should always try and give both sides. There's a footballer called Yannick Bolasie. I think he was at Palace and then he was at Everton. And basically he was saying that, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, it's really shocking as a footballer when you see players getting abuse from their own fans. I always think it's best when those who are closest to you support you. And it got quite a bit of traction because people were like, yeah, he's absolutely spot on. I just think it's a great example of opinion. and why respecting people's opinions is very important, even if you disagree with it. Because to me, that ethos, which I've used quite a lot there, is very much win, lose or draw, I'll support the players. Win, lose or draw, I'll support the team. The team is the Manchester United badge and the team that I've always loved. Win, lose or draw, I'm not going to support the players. That's ridiculous. So basically, if you take what that sort of message is from Yannick Bolasie and some fans that we have of United, to be fair, because I see it a lot as well. I see people saying you're the reason United is shit. I see people saying you're the reason players get abused. Well, that's ridiculous. We don't live in a dictatorship, and this community's always been about opinion. Like, a lot of people disagree with what I say, and a lot of people disagree with what a lot of people say. And if you've not got the intelligence to understand that you must form your own opinions, then that's very dangerous. Because we live in most of us live in a society where we've got the freedom to think, and that's what many of these world wars were about. So you should always have the freedom to think and make your own mind up, and not listen to me or anybody else, certainly. But do I think that fans of football clubs should stand by their players no matter what? If they want to, they can, but don't tell me to do it, and don't tell others who agree with me not to do it. If I was that type of, if I had that mentality and went, look, Manchester United's my football club, and all these players who play for Manchester United are my brothers, therefore I'm going to stick up for them no matter what. That's a very noble way of looking at it, and there will be people who agree with that. But I agree with Gary Neville on this, and maybe I'm stronger than Gary Neville on this, but and other fans on this. If I sat there this season and went, oh, look, Liverpool are going to potentially win a treble, we're going to embarrass ourselves, but you know what? These players, they're my bros. They're my family, so I'm going to stick up for them no matter what. I think respect and trust is earned. Surely. You know, if a family member of yours does something horrifically wrong and ends up in prison for 50 years, you can imagine what that would be. You're going to stick up for them because you're their family. Well, some of you might not. And, you know, taking it down a lot of levels, do these players deserve my respect and trust? Whether they want it or not? No, they don't. They're not good enough. It's not even their fault. I will back players to the hilt if they perform in a Manchester United shirt. That's the way it is. And I will back players. I mean, look at Jadon Sancho against Atletico Madrid. Terrible performance. I don't see any abuse for him because over the previous weeks and months, he's earned that respect and trust. That yes, every player can have a bad game or two. That's about loyalty. That's about trust. Because he's earned it in a shirt that, yeah, you're going to have a bad game every now and again. But players who consistently have proven themselves not to be good enough and shown bad attitudes in a United shirt and earn massive amounts of money, why should we sit there defending them? Why? I don't get that. But that's my opinion. Somebody will go, well, it's because they wear a United shirt. You've just got to stick by them. But ultimately, nothing's going to change if we stick by players that aren't good enough. Is that not what competitive sport's all about? Like, if you're not good enough, you need to move on. So there's a battle, there's an opinion, and it's an interesting conversation and debate, and there's another side to that, of course. But for me, from being a little kid in football grounds, listening to people shout and abuse players and say you're not good enough and take him off and this, that and the other, this ain't social media noise. This has been going on for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, and hopefully it will go on for years and years and years, because that's the element of competition. This ain't a non-competitive school sports day where everyone gets a prize even if you finish 20 metres behind the winner. This is about winning, and we can see with Liverpool and Man City that these teams are elite with elite winning mentalities, and that's why they're going to win things. You can see with this United side we lack that elite winning mentality and talent, and I'm not here to applaud it, because they're not good enough. I support Manchester United not because they won things, but because that was just how it was through my family. But I believe Manchester United should be competing for the very best trophies, and we are not capable of doing it with the players that we've got, and therefore it must be called out, in my opinion. What do you think will make the Glazers sell, says Akshay? I don't know. I really don't know. But ultimately, there's hypocrisy in this just get behind your players no matter what nonsense, because even if we do that as fans, Are we going to tell our manager to do that? The next manager walks in and goes, they're all a load of shit, I've got no chance. But you know what? You wear the United shirt, you're already here. That's not my fault, but you wear the United training top, so you're all my brothers, and I'm just going to back you no matter what. We're not, tell you what, none of you's going to lose your job. You're all staying. But that's why I never can understand this mindset of support and get behind your players no matter what. Support and get behind your players who earn your support and trust. That's what it's all about. If they deliver, they will get backing. If they're not good enough, then that needs to be said. And because ultimately, that's exactly what we want in our manager. We want a manager that comes in and goes, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you need to go, you need to be replaced, otherwise we're never going to close the gap. I just think we live in a world where a lot of things have changed over the last 20 years. A lot of things that were acceptable 20 years ago, thankfully, are not acceptable anymore. But we've also started to almost try and stop people criticising people who need to be criticised. Like in a workplace, if somebody does their job badly, they should be told they're doing their job badly. They shouldn't be taken for a meal and said, there, you're trying your best. They either improve with your support, or if they're still not good enough, then they need to be sacked. I was having this chat with my daughter a couple of years ago. She was on about non-competitive sports day and whether we're talking about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And I said, well, it's up to the schools what they do if they want to do that. But I tell you what, when you go for a job when you're 18, it will be a competitive job application form. They're not going to just go, everyone gets a job because that's fair. Even if you're rubbish, you've got a job. They'll give the job to the best person. And I tell you what, in the real world as well, that job that you go for, you might be the best person to get the job, but you never know what little bit of corruption's going on behind it. You know, there might be the godfather of there might be the goddaughter of the owner. There might be all sorts of things going on. So, you know what? Life's not fair. And anybody who pretends that it is, or anyone tries to, make a world that is fair, good luck with that. But this isn't the UEFA Fair Cup. This is the Premier League. This is the Champions League. This is the FA Cup. It's not about fairness. It's about who's the best. And if you want to be the best, you've got to have the best. And you've got to have the best mentality. You've got to have the best players. And I, for one, am not getting on board with, well, even if they're absolutely shit, let's applaud them because they wear a United shirt. That's not how you win. It's not how you win, unfortunately. You've got to demand. You've got to demand. We pay players' wages, so have the right to be critical. If you run a business and pay wages, you have a right to criticise. It's self-damage, your business, says Chris Martin. I just think ultimately these players aren't good enough. And there was that article yesterday. Did you see it yesterday? I don't think I've got it. There was an article on the Man United app yesterday morning. Why we should back Harry Maguire. And I was like, oh my God, what are they doing? Propaganda, whatever. So I read the article, and it was basically about he read books about United when he came to the club, and he's really determined and focused. And I was just like, why have you wrote that article? It's the worst time to write that article. And I was like, he read books about United's history. Oh my God, breaking news. Slow Sports News, breaking news. Harry Maguire, £200,000 a week, 80 million signing, read books on how to do his job. I mean, bloody hell, give him a knighthood. He read books, and he read books about United's history and entrenched himself in learning all about the club. Man gets employed to do a job and learns how to do it. I would expect every Manchester United player that comes to this football club. What disgusts me is that the Man United app are telling us that Harry Maguire read about our history. Does that mean some of our signings don't? Fucking hell. Who's running this fucking football club? We are championing somebody reading about our history. I've spoken to United fans on this channel in the last few weeks, in the last few years, who knew sod all about Munich. I think it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But as a player of this football club, it should be part of your contract. It really should. But I don't know. But look, determination. I mean, it's almost like, going back to non-competitive sport, it's almost like non-competitive sport again, isn't it? Harry Maguire and these lads are determined. Well, we've been consistently crap for 8 months, so that determination's nothing. It's like let's get behind the person who's going to run this 100 metres race and finish last because they're trying their best. That is, I mean, ultimately we've just come full circle. United app put an article out yesterday saying get behind our captain because he's trying really hard. And this is why United are failing, because we are a team that isn't good enough, but we're being told by our football club to get behind players who are trying hard. It literally is non-competitive sports day. There are teams like Liverpool and Man City, the gun fires, they sprint off into the distance, but we've got people who are never going to win the race, but they're sweating and they're trying their best. That's not good enough. I can't get behind players or a club that is determined and trying their best. Trying their best is not being the best. We need to be the best. That's what we need to do. That mentality needs to be in that football club. And it goes back to what we were talking about at Barcelona. They are determined to be the best. They ain't got no time for trying to be the best. They want to be the best. And that's what's the most important thing. Benzema criticised Vinicius Jr. and Casemiro for playing games before the match, but United players will only leak stuff but will not say it in public, says Pritesh. And Mark, any news on the young lad on the CDM position? Someone called Toby from Bayern, says Vivek. No, don't know anything about that, mate. Don't know anything about that. Right, so big week ahead. United will be progressing with the manager search this week, and I think by the end of the week they'll know who they're getting. They know who they want today. By the end of the week they'll know who they're getting. At 2 o'clock today I'm doing a video on Ten Hag and his tactical setup, so make sure you watch out for that. Some of you will know it, some of you will want to know more of it, some of you will just be interested to see it. So Ten Hag, tactics and what it means for Manchester United if he's Manchester United's next manager. Excited for that. 8 o'clock show as usual, and a big week ahead. So make sure you subscribe, smash a like on the video. I think there's going to be a lot of news coming out this week. Also, wouldn't be surprised, just as a prediction, would not be surprised if we get something about Paul Pogba this week. But let's wait and see. Thanks for watching. Speak to you in a bit.